Hello and welcome to Talking Live. I'm Dr. Robi Ludwig out of Starshot Studio in Times Square. And this week for Talking Live, it's Empowering Women Week. And to start us off, we have Amy Newmark, who is the editor-in-chief of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And she has just come out with a new book called The Empowered Woman. And she talks about there are 101 stories that are just insightful and empowering and amazing to read, and proceeds will go to Dress for Success. So we are so excited to have her today to tell us a little bit more about this very successful franchise, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Everybody knows about it.
That is true.
It must be in several languages at this point.
I think different books have been translated into 50 different languages.
Yeah.
So we're all over the world. I mean, if you dialed, the 800 number on your credit card and you talk to somebody in Asia and you mention Chicken Soup for the Soul, which sometimes happens for me, they can go, I love Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I'm like, great, take the finance charge off my credit card.
That's a good strategy. I love it. Well, you mentioned to me that Chicken Soup for the Soul is having an anniversary, 25 years. And, when we hear this latest title, empowering women, is such a common theme right now. It is really with the Me Too movement, and women really are finding a voice and valuing their boundaries. And yet you just came out with this. How do you stay so current?
So we're constantly getting stories in from the public. We get about 5,000 stories submitted for every book.
Wow.
And we put out a book a month. So we have
tens
of thousands of stories coming in. Oh, we're so busy.
Yeah.
And I have a whole team that reads all of the stories, so we see what's important to people.
Yeah.
Every one of our books is crowdsourced. So everything is always fresh and relevant.
So what does crowdsourcing mean for people who might not be in the industry?
So that means that you create your product using ideas from the public. Mm-hmm. So we do it on our website, chickensoup.com. We post what we're looking for, and people who have been writing as freelancers for a while, or brand new people who've never been published, they go to our website, they see the topics we're collecting for, they send in a story, and if a story is great, but it needs some editing, I will personally edit the story for them, and that way they can become a published author.
So this is really great to know. We should probably put the website up, so if there are any people out there who feel that they have a unique story that they want to tell, this is really a wonderful opportunity. Now, do you use people's real names? Do people want their real names revealed?
We use people's real names. Okay. If they have a story that's a little dicey, maybe it's about an ex or a difficult mother-in-law or something they don't want their name associated with, we let them use a pen name. It's funny though, sometimes they'll say they're going to use a pen name, and then by the time we're ready to publish, they say, you know what, I want to use my real name, because they want to own their story.
Yeah.
And I think that is so healthy.
I do too.
To own those personal revealing stories.
You know why? Because part of what stops us from sharing our story is the shame sometimes that we have associated with it. So when somebody wants to attach their name to a story, it means that they've owned it and that they've incorporated it into their psyche in a new way.
Yeah, and this book is great because women are sharing these very personal, revealing stories about how they became more confident, more courageous, how they became true to themselves. Mm-hmm. These are emotional stories, but so helpful to everybody else.
Yes, and what I love about this series is that you never know who's reading a story that really needs to hear that message. So any one of these stories can create that aha moment of people either owning themselves in a new way or pursuing a goal in a new way. We talk about, and I want to hear if there are any favorite stories, or is it hard to choose one favorite?
Oh my goodness. These are 101 of my favorites, but there are a few we could talk about that appealed to me personally and inspired me personally.
So before we go there, we had Leslie Jane Seymour here not too long ago. In fact, she was here last week telling us her reinvention story. She's also in the book, right?
She is. We were so happy to get her story. Yeah. And the fact is that Leslie Jane Seymour was this very powerful editor-in-chief.
Yes.
One woman's magazine after another, started More Magazine, And then because print magazines are basically declining and getting
Yeah.
thinner and thinner and thinner, she lost her magazine. It was put out of business. But now she's doing the same thing online through her Covey Club for women over 40
Yeah.
who need empowerment. And so she's reaching the same audience. She's just using the technology that killed off her print magazine.
Yes.
She's now using that technology to start her new business.
Which is so brilliant.
It is.
Because whatever you resist persists. And so really that is what helps anyone to transition in the way that they need to. You need to embrace change.
Yes.
And once somebody stops embracing change, that's really when you kind of get old and sidetracked.
That is one of the key messages that we tell in almost all our books. Like we put The Power of Yes there, which is coming out in August.
Yay.
But it's all
You'll
about,
have to come back in August.
So that book is about how stepping outside your comfort zone really does empower you. We have a lot of stories in our Empowered Woman book about women who did something they were afraid of. They overcame a phobia. They overcame a little fear. For example, we had a woman named Wendy Ann Rich, and she was meeting her friend at a restaurant. And her friend, when Wendy got to the restaurant, her friend was standing out on the sidewalk, even though it was freezing cold. And she said, "Why are you out on the sidewalk?" And her friend said, "Oh, I couldn't walk into the restaurant alone." And Wendy said to herself, she was a young woman. She said, "What am I afraid to do alone? What is holding me back?" And she made a list of all the things she was afraid to do alone. And then she did nothing about it. But then she was volunteering at a senior center, and there was this lovely gentleman in a wheelchair, and she revealed to him her list, including her desire to go to Japan by herself. And he said, "Wendy, do it for me."
Aww.
And she went to Japan and spent a month by herself, and it was life-changing.
What did she learn?
She learned that she could be great company for herself for an entire month. But when you do something like that, that strength, you carry that with you forever. Each time you do something you're afraid of, even if it's just trying a new food, anything from little tiny things to gigantic things,
I mean,
it empowers.
As you're talking, I think about, we often talk about the way other people might pigeonhole us, how we're misperceived in a certain way, but we also can misperceive ourselves and get used to seeing ourselves in a very limited way and not realize all that we're capable of. And I think what these stories show is that everybody is capable of doing that one next thing that brings them to the next level. You talk about there's a woman with it's in body image.
Oh my goodness, everybody's problem, right?
Yeah, yes. And I guess maybe because it's summer, this resonated with me.
So
I was
much
like,
worse
I
now.
understand. I feel her pain.
Yeah.
But she was a woman who was a model, a large fit model, right? And she had some concerns and avoided the gym.
So Tanya Abari had already been certified as a Zumba instructor, but wouldn't go to the gym. And she kept joining gyms, quitting, joining, quitting. She didn't want to go to Zumba class because she was large and she had parts that jiggled, as she said. Finally, she turned 30 and she said, "This is ridiculous. I'm going to the gym." She joined a Zumba class. And then you'll understand this as a psychologist. Besides the fact that she loved the class and she kept going, there had been another obstacle to happiness in her life. She hadn't been making new friends. She made all these new friends in the class.
Wow.
And then several months later, their instructor quit. And they made Tanya the instructor.
Oh, I love that story.
Isn't that great?
I love happy endings. And it's so powerful.
And it really says
and
to
it
us,
resonates.
well, we need to put our bathing suits on for the summer. So we have stories in the book about women putting on their bathing suits and participating, because we all have this tendency to actually make up excuses. "Oh, I'm not going in the water," this and that. And then we deprive ourselves of being part of all the fun summer activities.
That's true. That's true. Have you ever had anybody write into you and say that they were moved by a story they read in one of your books, and that just, that helped them to take the next step in their life, say yes to something they wouldn't normally say yes to?
Oh, yes. We get fan mail like that every day, because these books are really powerful. And you were saying before that every story could have a positive impact for somebody. Each story that I pick, I'm imagining 10,000 people who are positively affected by that story.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about those people. I don't know them, but I'm just thinking about them when I put that story and saying, I know this is going to help a lot of people.
It's almost like positive ripple effect, which I'm sure that it does. Overcoming sexual harassment, the reason why I bring that up is because this is a topic that we hear a lot about, and there's a lot of fear out there. It's interesting, we have conversations before we actually come on the air, and you were talking about just men's reactions, and I was a little bit surprised, but I know men are frightened about this whole new sexual harassment and being accused of something, and what does it mean for them, and women still feel uncomfortable.
It is difficult. Everybody's being very careful now. You can't even comment to somebody of the other gender and say, oh, I like what you're wearing today. But what I talked about in the book was an experience I had about 20 years ago, not with sexual harassment, but with male chauvinism. And I think things have gotten better, but not better enough. And I put this story in because I wanted to show younger women how things were, but remind them they might still be this way.
Yes.
And I regret the fact that I didn't stick up for what was right at the time this happened. But what happened was that I was a Wall Street analyst, and I picked stocks that went up, stocks that went down. And one time I really helped a client, and the client saved a lot of money, avoided a disaster in a stock, and they sent me flowers to thank me. And I thought, well, that's very nice, but I do this for a living.
Right.
And then a few years later, I joined the management team of a big, fast-growing company, and I was one of 4 people who reported to the CEO. So I had arrived, right? At least I thought I had.
Yes.
I was up there with the guys, right?
Yes.
The only woman up there. And we did a big capital raise. A Wall Street firm took us around on a road show. Anyway, the deal was a big success. When it was over, went to my office, came in one morning, and I was told that the investment banker had sent everybody gifts. And I heard that the 3 men who I had worked with on the deal each got 6 bottles of Dom Perignon. And I thought, ooh, that's good. I love champagne. I went into my office all excited. Guess what was on my desk?
I hope not flowers.
Yes.
Flowers.
Not that I have anything against flowers.
Right.
But really.
You'll take them for Mother's Day, but other than that.
They were well-meaning, though. I mean, that's the thing. So I think we all have to stick up for what's right. There was a woman in the book named Lorraine Lush. She had a boss who told her to sit and look at the wall like a lady if I don't have any work for you to do.
Wow.
And she really wanted to work on computers. She was great at computers, and she wanted to grow in her job, and he wouldn't let her. And then one day she needed to pick up her car. It was being serviced, and he wouldn't let her go. And she was going to miss the dealership closing, and she wasn't going to be able to drive home. So she left work 10 minutes early to pick up her car, and he fired her. And it was the best thing that ever happened to her. Do you know what she did? She started a computer service company. She ran it for 25 years.
Wow.
The
So that was a
ultimate
blessing in
revenge.
disguise.
Oh my gosh,
So
it
I
was.
think also what we see in these stories is, a turning point. So a story that might look really hard or difficult or awful at one point can end up really being the rebirth of a new life or new opportunities. I'm thinking about the story about a woman who left her abusive husband.
Oh, yes, yes. So we would never publish a story that didn't have a good resolution. And I know who you're talking about. And she was very brave, and she did it. And of course, it was so much better for her and her family.
Yes.
And she was so glad she had done it. It took a lot of bravery for her to share the story.
Right.
Now, we had 2 like that in the book. One of them, the woman used a pen name. And 3 days before the book went on sale, she said, I wish I hadn't used a pen name. And she started blogging that she had written the story and saying, hey guys, here's my real name. That's my story.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Good for her.
She owned her story.
Yes. So it was a process for her, though.
People tell us that even when we don't publish their stories, when they're one of the 5,000 that are submitted that don't get in, I still get thank you notes from people saying, thank you for causing me to write my story because it changed my life, because it made me get in touch with my history and with my feelings. And I feel so much better now that I've told my story, even though I really just told my story to myself.
Yeah. Well, it can help clarify one's thoughts about their life and how to incorporate it into who they are and what they want for themselves, which is really about empowerment. There's one overcoming sexual harassment where a woman was a widow.
Oh my goodness, yes.
This story really resonated with me because she was approached by her boss, and he said, give me sexual favors if you want advancement. And she declined. But what was so fascinating is that she did not have support from her family or friends around her. At the time, they advised her not to sue this person. And yet,
so she took him to court. She really needed that job. So she kept going to work. Her coworkers shunned her. She ended up winning in court. A judge awarded her 5 years worth of wages. And then this boss filed for bankruptcy. But then he died, and his estate paid her. The whole process took 4 years.
Wow.
She said it was embarrassing and it was exhausting and it was the hardest thing she had ever done. But when it was all over, she said she felt so great because she was no longer a victim.
Yeah, she was certainly not a victim. And it's even harder to do when you don't have support. Because when you don't have close people around you supporting what you're doing, it's hard to feel secure in your rightness.
She was amazing that she did this without any support.
Yeah.
And she really needed this job. This was not a celebrity in the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
This was an everyday person who had been cleaning houses before she got this job.
Now, you get so many stories, and our last story, I want to be the CEO of Dress for Success, who a lot of the proceeds of this book will be going towards. You get so many stories. How do you decide which one to choose, what not to choose? That must be so challenging.
So we pick stories that make us feel something. They either make us tear up a little bit, or they make us laugh out loud, or they make us want to share the story with somebody who we know would benefit from the story, a friend or relative. But they have to make us feel something, and they really have to make us feel that 10,000 people will get something out of them. And it's hard, though. Sometimes I feel like a college admissions counselor because 5,000 stories coming in, 101 slots in one of these books. I feel bad about it.
Yeah.
But this is really the cream of the crop, a great variety of stories that will help everybody.
So one of the stories you talk about, and I believe Joy wrote the introduction.
Yes, she did.
And Joy is, and I'm going to get her last name right because, hold on, where is Joy's last name?
It's Joy Gordon.
Joy Gordon is the CEO of Dress for Success, and she wrote a lot about what inspired her, right? And what she hopes for women as a result of this organization.
Yes, and I've been talking to her about that
and
recently.
I think we have a suit that you donated.
Oh,
I have it there.
Oh, yes.
You donated a suit
so
recently,
I was there Friday. I went Friday to do another Facebook Live with Joy Gordon, and I did go through my closet, and I had tried that suit on 2 weeks ago and realized it was never going to fit me again, and it was stupid to hold on to it just in case. So I thought, let me give this to some lady who I don't know, who I imagine wearing it to an interview and just acing that interview. Yeah. But I talked to Joy about the joy she gets from running Dress for Success. She's actually a lawyer. She's a lawyer by training, but she's been running Dress for Success for almost 20 years. And she said it's not a job. Every single day she's so excited to go to work because what Dress for Success does is they help these women not only get an outfit together for their job interview, but they help them practice for their interview. Wow. They teach them what to do once they get the job. They empower them so they can continue to support themselves and their families.
There was a very strong visual story that I was reading that was connected to Dress for Success, and it was a woman whose husband was out of work, and she was college educated, but for some reason she wasn't able to get a job. And somebody recommended go to Dress for Success, and she goes there and finds this outfit. And she looks at herself and says, I feel beautiful and I'm going to be a success. And she talks about it's not only the outside in, but it's the inside out. And I just thought that was really what it's all about. And I want everyone to know that the proceeds, right, are going to
royalties go
to
Dress for Success.
To Dress for Success. So please know that when you get the latest book. And are you ready for our quick five? That's where I ask my more personal questions, but you said you're an open book.
I am ready. Yes, I have learned to really open myself up writing all these Chicken Soup for the Soul stories. And my family also is getting accustomed to it because I write about them too.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so interesting because you listen for stories even when you're off the job. So you're never probably completely off the job because you're always listening for that next right story.
I'm always saying to people, send that story.
Yes.
And I want that story.
Yes, yes. Okay. So what do you wish you knew more about?
Right now, what do I wish I knew more about? I wish I knew how to speak foreign languages better.
I know. Me too. I share that with you. Yeah. It's hard in this country. We don't really.
I used to be fluent in Portuguese and I was
really?
almost fluent in French, but I never get to use them and I've lost them.
And you lost. But
Yes.
you can gain it back easier, right? Since you know it.
I went to Portugal, called up this port tasting place to find out what time they opened. I was very proud I used my Portuguese. And I said to my husband, they open at 2 p.m. We got there at 2 p.m. That's when they closed. So much for my Portuguese.
All right, so you practice a little more open, close. What's the difference? Okay. What are some of the small things that make your day better?
Small things that make my day better. Small things. Reading. Even if I get 10 minutes to read a book that I don't have to edit, that makes my day.
And that's hard to fit in sometimes. What shows are you into these days?
Oh, television shows. Okay, well, I've renamed one of my favorite shows. I call it This Is Us Crying. What else do I like? I like Hawaii Five-0 for the scenery.
Oh, okay.
I like The Americans. I like Grey's Anatomy. I like doctor shows because one of my children is a doctor.
Oh, okay.
I'm always into those shows.
Yeah, yeah. How often do you people watch?
Oh, I people watch all the time and I make up stories about people. I'll be sitting with my husband and I'll tell the whole story about the person. It will sound like a Chicken Soup for the Soul story, except I just made it up. I love people watching.
That's good. I like that. So maybe next you'll be a playwright.
Maybe. It's my favorite people watching. Sit outside a candy store. People walk up, they look, they're like, no. They look again, no. And then you see them go, I'm going in. And then you see them looking a little guilty, but they go in. I love watching that. Try it sometime.
I could see why people feel guilty going into a candy store. Okay. What is the most heartwarming thing you've ever seen?
Oh, boy. I guess that would be my new grandchild reaching out to me when she was afraid and huddling against my chest. And that just happened a couple of weeks ago. And she's just a baby. And I thought, I've arrived.
That must be so
I really
thrilling.
am her grandmother.
I love baby videos anyway. So I like anytime any grandparent or parent posts videos of their little babies, I'm all about that. But that sounds very heartwarming. Well, I just want to remind people that this is the wrong one. Okay, this comes out in August. This one is out now, and if you share and like the show, you can be eligible to win Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Empowered Woman, and it's 101 stories of being confident, courageous, and your true self. So don't forget to share and like the show and be eligible to win this free signed copy by the editor, so it's special. And thank you so much for being here. We are thrilled to have you. I hope you come back in August when we can talk about
the power of
yes, because that sounds really exciting and empowering.
It is.
And thank you for joining Talking Live. We will be back on Wednesday where we are continuing our theme of empowering women. So we will see you then. Bye.